they just never feel heard, that their symptoms get pushed underneath a rug or swept away, like they're being ridiculous. And I want you to know, like, you're not being ridiculous.
Hello, and welcome to the Evolving with Jessica podcast. My name is Jessica. I am an integrative nutrition health coach, a holistic skin healing guide, and certified life coach. In this podcast, we cover topics such as holistic health and wellness, nutrition, and spirituality. If you enjoy or gain any insight, please leave a review. This makes the show more searchable, which helps others find the information too. This was such an incredible conversation with Alexandra Birch, a certified holistic nutritionist who specializes in women who are struggling with their gut and hormone health. We honestly could have kept talking for hours because we were very aligned in terms of our perspective on health and how to view it and treat it. This is definitely one you'll want to listen to till the end. We covered all kinds of topics, including how to avoid or detox from hormone disruptors, where hormone disruptors come from and how they affect us, what to put on your skin during an eczema flare-up, stress management and sleep quality for overall health and how much it impacts your wellness, why women break out during their cycle, why we don't ourselves give specific meal plans, transitioning from vegan to eating meat, the importance of sourcing quality food that is manufactured to be addictive, and then we also got into some of the benefits of things like playing team sports when we were younger. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, subscribe, give a review. If you took anything away from it, please screenshot the episode and share it to your stories. This helps tremendously, and you can tag both of us. My Instagram handle is Evolving with Jessica, and Alexandra's is at I am Alexandra Birch. You can also find that in the show notes, and let us know your thoughts. Enjoy. How is life in Bali?
Well, Bali was actually incredible. I'm back in Toronto, which is my hometown in Canada. I will be returning back to Bali in October, which I'm really excited about. It tends to get really busy in this season right now. A lot of people are visiting Bali, so it's actually the perfect time to come and visit family because it's summertime and I love summer. Although I was born in Canada, I have this crazy allergy, I'll put in like quotation marks, to winter. I just hate the cold so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm one of those people that chases summer, and Australia, Bali, and Canada, like they kind of all rotate somewhere around the perfect time. So I kind of chase it throughout the year.
Oh, that's perfect. And I totally understand that living in Florida and growing up in Florida. So I get the whole winter thing. Although I love snow, and I think that's because I never really got it. Yes, but I do understand. Man, that's unfortunate about you not being in Bali again till October, because I'm actually going there in 2 months. And I was going to say, hopefully our paths will cross and we'll get to meet in person.
When are you heading to Bali?
I'll be there the end of August, and then I'll like the halfway through September.
Okay. I mean, there's a possibility we may see each other. I am going to a retreat in October, so the first week of October. So that's like the latest I can be there. But depending on the weather change in Canada, I might be there a little bit earlier. So we'll see. It's kind of unpredictable.
Okay, that'll be perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I'll be there till Actually, I think it's mid-September.
Okay. So there's possibility. We'll see. We'll see how the stars kind of line up for us.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so you're a hormone and gut nutritionist. So I would love to talk about hormone disruptors.
Yeah.
I feel like they're everywhere. And like, okay, do we do our best to avoid them, or is it better to just live your life and then help the body get rid of them?
Yeah, great question. There's two sides to this question, right?
Mhm.
So reducing your ability to have them around you is always going to be a great option. Our world is filled with them, so it's going to be really hard to eliminate it 100%. And then the other side of this conversation is making sure your body and your different pathways, because we have so many different detoxification pathways within our body. If those aren't working, you're just going to have a buildup, and then a lot of problems will start to happen within your body. So it's a double-edged sword, right? So yes, you can reduce it, you can eliminate them all out of your body and all out of your environment. And if your body isn't functioning in a way where it is able to eliminate what's already in there or what's coming in additionally, it's going to be kind of pointless to reduce or get rid of it all on the external as well. So I would say it is that you have to do a little bit of both. I also, when I went through my schooling, I had this really interesting thing that happened when I learned about hormonal disruptors.
Mm,
And I went into a crazy spiral of an obsession of eliminating everything in my environment.
mhm.
And it's not sustainable. It's
Right.
very stressful, and it actually adds a lot more stress to yourself, your body, and your system. So I would say, like, if this is something that is of a concern, great, bring it into your awareness and start small in your elimination. Working with a healthcare practitioner to support you and making sure your actual body pathways are open and your detoxification pathways are open is going to be really, really important. Because if you're starting a detox and your pathways aren't open, you can actually cause way more problems within your body than you want to start. So it's like just a little sigh of caution. Like, there's a lot of things online where people are like, yeah, let's do a detox. And that's all good and great.
Mm,
And you have to be really mindful that detoxification can be very intense for your body as well.
yes.
So those are the two things I would say when it comes to hormone disruptors is like, it's not just all or nothing in one way.
Hmm. So for those listening, a hormone disruptor is something that obviously disrupts your hormones. What are some examples of that?
Yeah, great question. There can be something as simple as certain products you put on your skin. I love to use this example. So let's say you put a lotion on your skin that has a certain chemical. It can actually be absorbed within your skin within 20 minutes. And then those chemicals can act like certain estrogens or certain things within your body, certain hormones that aren't natural. So it blocks the ability for your natural hormones to enter and do their job within your body. That was a really simple one, like chemicals within skincare, lotions, soaps, shampoos, that kind of stuff. You can also see it in certain cookware that can really be absorbed from your food when you're cooking. So those are two like really simple, basic things that we use probably every day.
Yes, I am so glad that you brought up the skincare piece because that's what I preach about is, somebody asked me yesterday when they're having a eczema flare up, what's best to use on their skin? And I said, something that you would eat, something like aloe or coconut oil, like you want to use something like that. And she asked, well, what if I'm not having a flare up? Kind of the same thing because it's still your skin, it's still absorbing everything you put on it. And just because you're not having a flare up, your eczema isn't healed. So you still want to be, even if it is healed, you definitely want to look at those chemicals and look at those ingredients because it's being absorbed and it does disrupt the hormones. And not only the hormones, but like you mentioned, the detox pathways, it will get in the way of those. And then if you're not detoxing properly, then all these other hormone disruptors, like from cooking or cleaning or breathing the air sometimes, get stored in the body. So where's the first place to start? You said to not get overwhelmed and to not kind of do what you did and try to eliminate all of them. So where is the best place to start eliminating them?
Great question. Before I go into that, and I really want to give this analogy because it's a really good analogy when it comes to thinking about when you talked about your eczema flare up, right? The analogy I like to give is like, okay, right now you may not have a flare up, and your flare ups, often when it happens, is I want you to imagine a barrel. Okay. Usually, what happens when you have a flare up of some sort, skin is a perfect example. And you have such a beautiful industry that you're into because your skin is literally telling you something is not working within your body, right? So
Mhm.
from what you're putting into it versus when you're eating it, what you're putting on top of it, whatever, right? But I like to imagine a barrel, and this barrel, if you are adding more and more things, like let's say you're adding water to it, eventually that barrel is going to overflow. The overflow is that flare up. That's what I like to think about it. So oftentimes when people say, oh, I don't have a flare up, everything's good, you're like, yeah, but how full is your actual barrel still? Like,
Mm,
is that next thing, like if you're stressed out at work, is that going to trigger that overflow again? So I really like to give that analogy to people being like, okay, where is your actual barrel? And that often has to do with the amount of sleep you have, the stress levels in your life, how well are you eating, where are you on your menstrual cycle? Like women, even in our menstrual cycle, our immunity is a lot higher or lower depending on where we are in our cycles. So I always love to give that barrel example because you are able to really determine, okay, the flare ups happening, but what else is going on in my life? What else did I change something maybe in my skincare? Did I change something in my diet? Am I not sleeping as well? Is my stress level really high? So that's like one piece I love to give. And then your
yeah.
question was, where do you start? That was
Mhm.
the question, correct?
Yeah.
Start with one area of your life. And whether you choose that to be your skincare, that's great. Whether it's your cleaning appliance, cleaning, why am I forgetting the word? Like your cleaning supplies.
Uh,
Thank you. Got it. Whether it's your cooking ware, or the other things that you're using within your life. Okay. Water is a big one too. Like, are you filtering your water?
Mm.
The best way I actually recommend for my clients to do it is, let's say you finish your skincare. That is a perfect time to start to implement it. Because if you go to the point where you're like, okay, I'm switching my shampoo, my skincare, my beauty, all this thing, it can be overwhelming and expensive. Like,
Yeah.
it's not cheap to switch all of these things to alternative products, um, or to products that are a little bit cleaner. So I always like to say, start making the change when you're becoming low on something or it's finished, because one, you're not wasting. Again, coming back to the environment, you're not wasting products, but also it's not going to overwhelm you because you're not going to finish your shampoo at the same time as your skincare, most likely. So you can slowly make that transition out into a cleaner alternative.
Yes. Okay. Two different pieces. One, going back to your example of the barrel. I love that so much. People don't realize how intertwined all of these different pieces are of our health. Like you mentioned, the sleep and our adrenals. So if something stresses us out and our adrenals are not very strong, that could put us over I like to use the term tipping the scale. So that could definitely tip the scale, just one little thing, and you don't know how close you are until you kind of hit it.
Yeah.
And that's why keeping all those, like having your sleep and limiting the amount of toxins. I still personally, I don't want to act like I'm over here just, cleaning with lemon and vinegar because I have my own toxic capacity where I'll still use makeup that I know has things in it that I won't eat. I wouldn't eat my shampoo and conditioner. Like there are different chemicals and the things that I use, but at the same time, I keep my diet incredibly clean. My sleep is on point. I have these other areas so that I'm able to kind of have that balance. And I think that's very important to, like you said, not to stress yourself out and try to be perfect and completely toxic free. Just make sure that you can do what you can do in these different areas of your life.
Yeah, I agree with you. When it comes to your adrenals and understanding where you're at with your overall health, that's like really what I do as a practitioner is I look at all areas of your life. So for me, like my designation is more of a holistic approach where I look at more so everything else that is happening within your life. And that's sometimes often what happens when we look at health is that we look at one moment, we look at just diet and that's it. And that's not always the case. A lot of the clients I work with, oftentimes it's sometimes just dialing in their sleep or supporting them with like stress management and really regulating their nervous system throughout their days. Because let's be real, there's no shortage of ways of being stressed out. So I really value that portion of my practice. My business is more so from that holistic side. And I think you and I are very in alignment with that because even with skin, like, okay, you can put a lot of things on your skin and it may solve the surface level problem, but at the end of the day, is that going to create a long lasting change? Probably not.
Right. Yes. And then it will probably be something that you're having to deal with for the rest of your life, which is not fun for you, having to go through your day-to-day life or dealing with different real life things, like whether it's a gathering or an outing or travel that you want to do. And now you have this problem that you're going to have to deal with every single day because you never actually addressed the root cause. I
Absolutely.
remember the other thing I wanted to mention, you brought up women's cycles.
Oh, yes.
So important. Okay, women, our immune system drops by 80% when we have our cycle. So that's why we get those symptoms like headaches and cramps and everything else under the sun, because our immune system is focused on our reproductive organs, which makes total sense. If you think about it, we're a species, and the number one goal is to stay alive and to keep the species going. So, of course, that's going to be the number one priority of the body. And as long as we're alive and we're able to reproduce, then everything else doesn't really take the front seat. And so during those times when you do have your cycle, that's when women break out and have flare ups and these different things. And that's totally normal. But if you don't want to deal with those, then you need to go deeper with your healing, because obviously there are people who have their cycles and never have a breakout during their cycle. And that's because they're not tipping the scale or overflowing their barrels, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up because one thing we normalize as women is that period, like PMS, premenstrual, like symptoms is normal.
Mm,
And it is normal when things aren't in balance. But I don't want to normalize it saying that it is okay and you have to live with pain or breakouts or all these things, because the reality is you don't actually have to. For me, my cycle, I've had a really weird relationship with my cycle. I was on birth control for a very long time, probably longer than I even want to care to admit.
mm,
And I used to get crazy acne underneath my chin right before my period. So I would always get one on my chin, like my chin, and then underneath my jaw. And these ones underneath my jaw were always cystic and very painful.
mm,
And I didn't actually understand until I got more into the holistic nutrition and the healing side of things, is like, that's actually all hormonal, right?
Mm,
And those are just signs your body is trying to tell you that something is out of balance. And this often has to do with the balance of estrogen, progesterone, even testosterone. Like, there's so many things we can tap into. And I really want the women to hear on this podcast that these are beautiful signs and cues that your body is trying to tell you that it just needs a little extra support. And oftentimes, again, when you get sick, your body is trying to tell you, like, slow down a little bit. I need extra support and love right now, whether that's through sleep or other supporting nutrients through your food or certain things, reducing your stress level. Your body is really, really powerful. And like you said, about 80% of our immune system capacity goes down almost the week before our period, throughout our period. So it's almost like I would say 10 days between that time where your immune system really drops down. So it's just a really beautiful, powerful thing where you're like, okay, knowing where you are in your cycle is really powerful. If you don't track your cycle, or if you don't have a period, I would just say, like, start to become aware of where you might be in your cycle, and it can really support you along that journey. Uh,
mm,
it was one of the most powerful things for me I've ever started to do, was tracking my cycle.
Yeah, and there's apps that make it really simple now. That's what I do. I just open up the app, like, okay, I started my period today, and they kind of fill out the rest, and that's as simple as it can be.
Yeah.
And one of the things about like being on your cycle too is I don't like to give specific nutrition. Well, I do like to give specific nutrition advice, but not general. For women, though, when it comes to their cycle, I do recommend having an extra herbal tea or a green juice, things like that, that are going to help support your immune system. I would love to hear how you approach nutrition though, because I mean, I know for me, I'm not big on the what I eat in a day, because I don't want people attaching to that and being like, this is what she's eating and this is what her goals are, what she does. And so I want to eat that way too. So I get those results. Does not work that way, at least from my experience. I would love to hear what you have to say on that.
Yeah, I'm smiling and laughing at this because, oh man, this is a big topic. In social media, we often want to mimic exactly what other people are doing. And what I want to share, and I'm sure you're probably in alignment with this, is that we are all completely different. Where we're at in our journey is completely different. We all have the same mechanisms, same hormones, same everything, but it's not the same. Your stress is not the level of my stress. Even if you don't have stress, our perceived level of stress is completely different, right? So it's like automatically me giving a specific meal plan, and I don't actually give meal plans to my clients at all. I give recommendations for recipes or how to create a balanced meal, but I don't actually say on Monday you eat this, this, and this. I don't agree with that because, one, it isn't sustainable, and two, it may work for a short time and then you revert back to whatever you were doing before. So for me personally, I used to be plant-based, 100% plant-based. I have now transitioned to eating meat because I realized that recognizing my body needed that. There are people that are 100% able to be 100% plant-based for the rest of their life, and that works for them. It doesn't change my values. It doesn't change my ethics or how I do things, because now, for me more than ever, sourcing is really important. You'll look at my phone and it's really funny because you'll see numbers of farmers and different people in my phone. And it's great because I built a relationship and I really understand where my food is coming from.
Mhm.
And I would say that's the piece I really want to drive home for most people is understanding where your food is coming from will make the biggest difference in one, how your body actually receives it, to, there's probably a lot less chemicals going into your food if you're understanding the sourcing and where the food is coming from. Farmers have a really beautiful connection with nature, and if you choose eat animals, like eat meat, that the farmers I've connected with have a beautiful relationship with their livestock, and understanding that that is a life cycle, but there is a way to do it with love and respect and kindness, and you can really absorb that as well through your food. I'm a strong believer of that. So to answer your question a little more broad in a very straight way, is I really listen to what my body needs in the moment. I've trained my body to get to the point where I can actually understand what is actually missing and what isn't. The average person doesn't, because they haven't had the training that I've had, which is why a lot of people work with practitioners, right?
Mhm.
So I would say the big thing, if you're just starting out on your health journey and you want to start to transition to learn how to listen to your body, is pay attention 10, 15 minutes, half an hour after what you eat, whatever you eat, and then gauge, how is my energy level? What do I feel? What's my, I'm getting a little like intense here, but like, what's my bowel movement? Do I have gas? Am I bloating? These are all signs and symptoms that something is working and something is not working. And so that would be the first step I would say for people, is starting to build that connection with their body and understanding what is actually happening within there. And then you can go to the next steps, on and on and on from there.
Mhm. Oh, wow. Okay, we have so much in common, and I love everything you just said. So, one thing I'm gonna work backwards. With the gas and the bloating and today's world, I feel like there's a huge portion of the masses where they laugh it off, where they think that like it's normal and it's funny or whatever when their body responds that way to food. And I just want to declare that that is not normal. That is your body communicating with you. And you definitely need to look at what you just ate and be like, okay, let me take a mental note here. My body's not responding well to this. Like, what was it inside of this food, or what was this food? Normally, it's not the piece of meat or the fruit or the vegetable. It's something that was made with that food, whether it was an oil or something majorly processed. Maybe the piece of meat was not humanely raised and was not, like sourced in a humane way. And that could be a huge piece of it as well, because then you're talking about antibiotics and different things that are injected into that. I too was plant based for a while. I gradually transitioned from being plant based and vegan to raw vegan for about a year. And I ignored my body for a while. I mean, it was wanting red meat, and I had been raw vegan for months, and I'm just like, what? Like, I don't need red meat. Why is my body wanting this? Like, I thought I knew better than my body. And meanwhile, as I continued to ignore this, I I started developing new symptoms and things. And I'm like, what's going on? All of my friends who, I'd surrounded myself with in this raw vegan world, they're like, oh, that's normal. You're doing some like heavy detoxing. You're really getting out all the toxins. Like, I'm like, but I felt better before. Like but you want to believe that you know better. So it's really getting like, it's really getting over yourself and listening to your body and trusting your body and not thinking you know better. And also, if you are craving something like that, because it's not the same as like craving Doritos. Like if you have a craving, oh, my body wants this. No, there's a difference between an addiction and something that has been designed to create that sort of desire versus an actual need for some type of nutrient inside of the food, which I determined was, there's a lot of nutrients inside of meat that are only available in meat. And that's why a lot of vegans, like they've been vegans for 10, 20 years, but they're taking supplements because there's just some things that you cannot get from a vegan diet because it's only available in meat. So all that to say, dairy's a different story, gluten's a different story, whole other subject. But yeah, I'm with you 100% on it depends on the person, it depends on where they're at, depends on their toxic load, what their goals are.
Yeah.
I mean, I think raw vegan was great for me for a couple months. And I think after a couple months, when I started needing these other things, if I listened, it would have been a smooth transition. I would have felt amazing, and I wouldn't have had those huge bumps in the road had I ignored that.
Absolutely. I am in complete alignment with you on that. I think about one of the best things that I heard from one of my teachers that I hold very close when I was in school. And he said, and the reason why I took this really to heart was he spent a lot of time traveling the world, observing and researching indigenous communities and their foods. What do they actually eat? And he said, of all the people he's traveled around the world, and these are some of the healthiest, oldest communities in the world. Okay. And he said, in all my studies, in all my research, I have never met a raw vegan ever,
Oh,
ever. And he says, even the other way, where he only has met one community, and that's in northern Canada, in Nunavut, where they were carnivore based. And that was only for the winter months where they ate whale blubber. So he said, the extremes do not exist. They've never existed in our world before. We have really created those and cultivated those. So I really held on to that. And at this time, I was 100% plant-based. So I started to observe and listen and just really open up my awareness, because what often happens when we're plant-based or we have a certain identity around how we eat, I would never in a million years think I would be eating meat right now. I would say that right now, because I attached myself so deeply into I eat plant-based. I'm a whole foods plant-based person. So that really kind of opened up my awareness to it, right? So even now, I'm a strong believer that these extremes can be very, very powerful when you need to support your body in a good way. I do fasting. I do juice fast. I do fruit fast. And that is something that I choose to do. It's not something I do forever. It's not something I do long term because it's not sustainable. I really believe our bodies are made to have this ebbs and flows of different foods and according to season and where you live. So it's always going back to local, eating local as much as possible and eating what's available to you, because that's the way your body is designed. You're not meant to have, steak and potatoes and greens every single day because your body can't handle it in that same way. Vice versa, I don't think you could eat just one fruit for the rest of your life. I do think you need those little balance of different nutrients, different colors, different things coming in within your body.
Yeah, and first of all, I got truth bumps when you said that the extremes don't exist all over my body. I'm like, yes, okay, this is true. And if we want to go even deeper, which I don't know how deep I want to go on the podcast, but there's another aspect to that. It's like maybe question why those extremes are coming up. Like who started that and why? Because it feels like a divide there, and if there's anything that's ever trying to divide us as a race, then it should probably be looked at a little bit deeper, or just don't look at it at all, because yeah, it's a whole other rabbit hole. But as far as eating local, a great place to start for people who haven't explored this world, farmers markets. You're always going to find people at farmers markets that are growing their own food and that live within driving distance to you, which is just miraculous. I mean, the food, the difference of the food, the vibration, like the fact that it hasn't traveled very far, it's just on a whole other level, like nutrient wise, just everything. It's not sprayed to in order to preserve it, to travel thousands of miles in a truck or planes. They even have farmers, at least I've known at my farmers market, I've met farmers who do sell their own meat. So you can get pretty much your entire food for the week if you stop at a local farmers market, and you're going to cut out a lot of those hormone disruptors, a lot of those toxins. You're going to be building your immune system in order to support the lymphatic drainage pathways. And yeah, it's just like a full circle thing just by looking at your diet this way.
Absolutely. Yeah. At the end of the day, we all know that food costs have gone up. And one of the biggest things I always say is like, yes, eating organic is going to be the best option for your body to avoid a lot of those extra hormones, antibiotics, all of these things. The
Mm.
reality is it is more expensive, without a doubt. Farmers markets are a great way to go. And although some people will say, oh no, it's more expensive, but when you compare organic from a grocery store versus going to a farmer's market, I still find going to a farmer's market, you're getting more value for your dollar there. So it
Mm.
is a really easy way. And what's really cool is if you ask the farmers about how they actually grow and what they use, they will tell you exactly what they do, which is really a powerful thing that when you go to an average grocery store, you can't do that. You can't talk to the person who's literally taking that lettuce out of the ground or picked that strawberry. And we
Mm.
have this little bit of an affinity of things being beautiful. I went to the farmer's market last weekend and I got these beautiful organic strawberries, and they did not look very good. I'm going to be perfectly honest, because they had little bumps and little things and they were covered in dirt still. And of course, I'm one of those people that like I literally will still taste everything. And so I took one in the car, and I've never tasted a better strawberry than that one because I spoke to the farmer. He said he picked them the day before. Like that isn't the reality for a lot of our food. So it, like you said, it's one of the easiest way to start to introduce yourself into a better food option is going to those local farmers markets.
I have a similar story. A few weeks ago, there's a place near where I live called Jessica's Farm. Ironically, is not mine. But I like to go there once a week if I can. And I went there a few weeks ago and they had locally grown seeded watermelon.
Wow.
And they had two different kinds. And I didn't know which one to get. So she was like, well, she had one cut open. She's like, do you want to try this one? I'm like, yeah. So I try it. It was great. I got that one. I brought it to the car. I ended up coming back. I'm like, let me also get the other one. I know I'm gonna want it. So I got one of each. And then I'm driving, and it was so good when I tried hers. And I had other errands to run, and I was going to be gone for a couple hours, and I didn't bring food. And I'm just like, all I really want is the watermelon. So I literally was like, where can I get a knife? And I pull over and I stop at a store and I buy knives. And then I'm in my trunk, like opening up these giant watermelon. And then I'm like driving, eating this watermelon. It was the best watermelon I've ever had. I mean, it was locally grown, it was seeded. Like it was, I mean, probably 15 minutes from where I live is where it was grown. Amazing. And you can literally, and they weren't perfect. Like when you go to the store, they are all like about the same shape, about the same color. Like these were all like mixed matched. And it's the same thing with the cucumbers there. And I like to post pictures whenever I get them to show people like this is what a cucumber is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Like they're all misshapen, they're all like different shapes and sizes. they're not all perfect, and they don't have that wax on the outside that you need to scrub off or make sure you peel it. Yeah, so it's just a whole other experience.
Oh my gosh, I love that story. I was just gonna say you should have just bought a spoon and started spooning it out. That's
No,
what I
I
love
had
to
a
do with
spoon in my
watermelon.
car.
So good. That's
So
amazing.
good. Okay, so you talk a lot about I am statements and like the power of our words.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did that start with you? And we didn't even get into yet like your own healing journey and how you even got on this path. But I'm
Great
guessing
question.
it probably ties in.
Yeah. So I worked in a corporate setting for many, many years. Yeah, and that really impacted a lot of my health journey. So I'll take you even further back. I was a fairly healthy person growing up. I was very active. I was a competitive volleyball player. And my dad was very into nutrition. And at the time, I didn't know that, but he always made sure I had some of the best balanced meals. And as I reflect back on my journey, I really see how that's really changed the way that I grew up, because I didn't love meat at that time. I didn't like the taste. I didn't like the texture. I really just have never really loved meat, which is why I really kind of transitioned to plant-based for a really long time. And what I recognize is that my dad had this ability to really balance my meals without even knowing, despite how much I was training at that time. So growing up, my hormones, I can tell you right now, without even doing any of the tests, were very, very balanced. I was one of the later ones to get my period. I didn't get it until I was like in grade 10, which was really late in comparison to a lot of people around me, a lot of girls around me. And I went to an all girls school. So like we all feed off of each other. We sync up together, right? So at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of weird. Why don't I have my period? Now I know, like, that was actually a good thing. And I really do attribute it to the amount of training I was doing, but also the incredible diet that my family made sure I had to, like, growing up, which is incredible. And then I hit university. University was when things really shifted for me. I was living away from home. So I got the lovely cafeteria where I was eating processed and fried food every single day.
Mm.
Within a month and a half, because I visited my family around Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving, I had gained close to 50 pounds. And that's a lot of weight within a short time. I then realized what had happened because my parents were like, whoa, Alex, like what happening? And I was still training and I was still playing volleyball at this time. So it was just not a great situation. I then transitioned into having a really serious eating disorder that I needed to work through. And that took a long time. It took a long time and a lot of healing. And a lot of, if you go onto my social media right now, you'll see a lot of the mindset work behind it, because I then transitioned out of my corporate job into life coaching. And it was more so healing for me because I knew how powerful my mind was and how important that I needed to transition from stopping and sabotaging myself within my mind. So you'll see a lot of the things I had spoken about were more so mindset related, but I didn't realize that has actually helped me with healing of this eating disorder, of transitioning and supporting other people. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the things we do, our brain doesn't like to expend energy. So we often work on patterns. We often do a lot of what we do. I think it's 80%. I can't remember the exact number, but 80% of what we do on a daily basis is a pattern.
Mhm.
And so I started to realize more and more that the moment I take care of what's happening between my ears in my head, it's going to help me in all areas of life. And that's when I really started to see a lot of transition from my health. It didn't, or my body didn't become about what does it look like in a bikini to how do I actually feel? What is
Yeah.
the energy? And it became so much more about longevity. And I think that's also a little bit of a maturity thing. I am older, like I'm in my 30s now. And in my 20s, I wasn't thinking about longevity because, life is freaking amazing. You're in your 20s, you're awesome. And I think a lot of social media is promoting more of that longevity side of things, which is incredible. And I think if 20-year-olds are really taking care of themselves, it's going to be so much easier as you age. But for me right now, it's like, how can I really support my body to age in a way that I am graceful and I am supported and I have everything that's functioning and working as I grow a lot older. So that's a little bit of like my backstory around that of why mindset is so important to me. It is because it makes a huge difference. Because at the end of the day, food is manufactured food is designed to keep you addicted to it.
Yeah.
You aren't meant to not eat it. So they literally change your taste buds. Like there are receptors in these foods to change the taste buds within your food. So normal food, aka strawberry or watermelon, doesn't taste sweet anymore. That's literally how it's designed. So if you're not consciously aware of your mindset, it's going to be really hard to be able to change and revert your body back to what it's actually meant to eat. So that's why I focus a lot on mindset.
Okay, so I'm going to work backwards again.
Yeah.
The food and the way that they design it, yes, it's down to a science, like the crunch, the flavor, the however much it makes you salivate, like even like foods like I mentioned before, Doritos, there's like those little white powdered sugar donuts. There's these foods are illegal in Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's chemicals in these foods that are not legal in other parts of the world that we still allow in the United States. And we wonder why we're like the most unhealthy country and we have the most people that are overweight, which I don't think is the people's fault. I think that their hormones are disrupted, their pathways are not clear, their gut is inflamed and blocked, and all of that's happening because they're eating these manufactured foods that they're led to believe are healthy or okay. And they're also put on these prescription drugs for these symptoms that they get, which makes everything in their body even worse. And then they're gaining this weight, but they're not really overeating. And if they are overeating, it's these foods that aren't actually foods.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the way I haven't had candy in years. But when I eat fruit now, especially I had a Picasso melon the other day for the first time. It's, melon season, so I'm talking about melons a lot. But they taste like Starburst. Like, I mean, obviously there was a time in my life I've experienced all these foods that I'm mentioning. And so I know what they taste like. I know how addicting they can be. And I've had the Skittles, the Starburst, the Reese's, all those things. But the food that I eat now, it tastes like those things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if whether like my taste buds changed or if these foods were designed to taste like the real kind of food, like dates mixed with cacao, mixed with nut butters, like things like that. And then they're like, okay, let's turn this into a candy bar, but add these other chemicals in it. And so that it makes the health deteriorate.
Yeah.
So that I think happens. Volleyball, you're not going to believe this, but I actually had this on my list to ask you about because I grew up playing softball. And I just think that it has made such an impact, and I didn't know it at the time. But looking back, I'm like, wow, had I not done that, like had my parents not put me into softball, I mean, I played for about 6 years growing up, competitive, totally life-changing, but didn't realize it at the time. Like the different things that you take away from that impact your health and your mindset long term, it's amazing. And I don't have children myself yet, but there's definitely things I can cherry pick from my childhood that I'm like, that made such an impact. Like my kids are going to be doing something similar because there's just so many different lessons that you learn from something like that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think any type of activity growing up, I think um, it teaches you so much from like social skills to hard work, commitment, delayed gratification, like all of these things I think are really powerful. I think in terms of movement, it taught me an awareness of my body. I think dance can really do that. I think dancers have some, I wasn't a dancer, not super graceful, but like dancers are, um, the functionality for movement in children, it really is a powerful thing. But I also think athletics and sport, especially team sports, there's so much you can get from it. And then I think when you're able to tie it all together, and at the time, again, I didn't realize this, and I'm sure it might be similar for you, but nourishing your body. So you're focusing on performance, right? There's so many amazing things that come from growing up, and I will be the same way when I have kids, is having them involved in sports and athleticism, because it is going to make a big difference in their life.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Great question. I think the biggest thing I love to share with anyone I work with, or even anyone I speak with, is this is a process. This is a journey. It's not a race. Um, I am not perfect. There are things that I don't do very well in my body, and I'm still learning a lot. This is like my designation, and I'm still learning as a practitioner. And I would say just like be really gracious with yourself. And if something is going on with your body, listen. And I think the one big thing that I like to say to a lot of people is that we don't hesitate to spend money on clothes or things outside of ourselves. And one of the best investment you literally can do is listen to yourself and invest in yourself. Your health is yourself. This is the only body you have. It's not going away. And you can't buy health. It's the one thing in life you cannot buy. Even if you have all the best supplements in the world and you eat organic, you cannot buy health. So it's like the one thing is invest in yourself, start slow, and be really gracious with yourself. If something's going on, find someone to support you that actually listens to you, because that's a big problem in our industry, is the amount of people I work with that tell me that they just never feel heard, that their symptoms get pushed underneath a rug or swept away, like they're being ridiculous. And I want you to know, like, you're not being ridiculous. So that's like my last little statement.
I couldn't agree more with that last part. Yeah, you're not imagining it. It's not in your head.
Yeah.
You're validated. Yeah. My last question for you.
Yeah.
What is your number one health tip, whether it's mindset, diet and nutrition, physical, emotional, just the one piece of advice that you would like everyone to know?
Really good question. Managing your stress and sleep are one of the most important things you can do. It literally will solve so much for your health. And focusing in, I know those are two, but I kind of like grouped them into one. If you focus on that, so much will open up from there, and everything else you do after that will be way more effective.
Yes, 100%. Where can people find you?
So I'm fairly active on Instagram. So my Instagram is I am Alexandra Birch. And that's like one of the best ways to get in contact with me.
All right, perfect. And I will have that in the description, of course. And thank you so much for joining me today, Alex.
Oh, it was so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And I hope everyone listening has a beautiful day. That concludes this episode. If this resonated with you, please give it a rating and review. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out on Instagram. I would love to hear from you. Links are in the show notes. I sincerely thank you for your time and your presence.